Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Trim the Wick Leadership Academy. And my name is Dan James, and I'm going to be with you for the next 4 weeks as we dive into this idea of why do we need leaders? How can I become a leader? And how do I prepare? All these things in our course here called Leadership 101. And we are so glad that you're with us today. And we want to welcome you to our class, Leadership 101. And I wanted to start off by just kind of talking about we're going to be using this book as a guide, the John Maxwell Leadership 101. And it is a small book, it is a book that you could probably read in 1 or 2 days, depending on how fast of a reader you are. If you want to pick one of these up, they're very inexpensive. They're somewhere around, they're under $15, and you can get them on Amazon or anywhere else. And it'd be a great reference. There's a lot of great stories that we're not going to cover, but we're going to reference, and we're going to learn about all the golden gems and the nuggets that are in this. So that's what the book we're going to be using, and we're going to be referencing quite a bit. So here's how our masterclass is going to be structured over the next 4 weeks. Okay, we're going to talk about the whys of leadership. Number one, week one, this week, we're going to talk about why leadership. Why do we need leadership? Why do you need to be a leadership? And why do you need to improve your leadership skills? Week two, why do we need discipline and priorities in our leadership? And not just in our leadership, but in our personal and daily lives that help us move forward, help us grow, and help us achieve the things that we want to achieve as leaders or just as people, believe it or not. Then, week three, why is vision so important? A leader has vision. A leader is someone who is 1 or 2 steps ahead and they see what is coming and they prepare, they help those that they are leading to get ready and to move forward so that they are able to still achieve even in difficult times or even in good times. So we're going to talk about that in week three. Then week four, why is influence so important? Now, this is talking about the importance of leadership as in reproducing yourself and building the next level of leaders and continuing to push yourself forward, but then not leaving a vacuum or a hole behind, but building those up underneath you so that there's always a layer and levels of leadership that are behind you that you are then influencing to move forward. So, a lot of things we're going to cover here. These are some of the basic things as a leader that you're going to need. We're calling this Leadership 101 because these are kind of the basic things that every leader should be a part of and every leader should know and understand. And we're just going to start off right from the beginning and get into it on why we need leaders. Okay. And you might be asking yourself, why do I need to be a leader? Well, John Maxwell um, has this great quote that everything rise and falls with leadership. And it does. You think about that if you don't have a leader that is bringing the people together, that is influencing others into doing things a certain way, um, it falls apart. Your team never grows. Your business will never grow. You'll get to a certain point and then it'll stop. If you don't have leadership that will then push it forward, that will take it to the next level, that will move everything in an upward direction, then it just falls. It's going to cap out and it's not going to go anywhere. And in this book, Leadership 101, he opens up with telling the story about the McDonald's brothers. Now, if you don't know the story of the McDonald's brothers, we're going to go into it just briefly here because the McDonald's brothers had this great idea, this burger restaurant where they made a production line basically with their hamburgers and with their processes. And they were able to start moving things forward and start getting things going. Well, what happened was they reached a point where they couldn't grow any further. Their leadership ability couldn't take them any farther. They were only going as far as their ability was. So McDonald's was just this little local restaurant. But there was a guy that they ran into, kind of. He was a actually he was a salesman who came into the restaurant, and he sold milkshakes and milkshake machines. So he was seeing this process and starting to put things together. Now, you might know this guy as Ray Kroc. That's his name. He was the guy who actually took over McDonald's. And, we can talk about all the things that he did to actually get the company away from the McDonald's brothers. But here's the thing that happened was that Ray Kroc had the leadership ability to not only push McDonald's forward, but to raise up other leaders behind him that would then be able to expand McDonald's to where McDonald's is not just known in Southern California, where they started, but they are known all over the world. And they are the biggest fast food restaurant in all over the world. They sell more food, they are more profitable than any other restaurant in the world. And it started because there was a gentleman named Ray Kroc who was a leader who then expanded what McDonald's as a restaurant could do because he understood how to build leaders, how to grow leaders, how to influence people and get them to move forward. So, how how is this done, and how is the principle that we see here? And you see it on the screen there, the law of the lid. Now, the McDonald's brothers were great. They were smart, they were innovators, but they had a lid. They could only go so far. So let's talk about it in this way. John explains this so beautifully, but I'm going to try to explain it as good as he does here. Imagine that you are a 4, okay? And a scale of 1 to 10 as a leader, you're a 4. Well, everyone under you will be a 1, 2, or 3. They can't go any farther than you are because you're the main leader. So they go and they just keep hitting the lid, right? Your business will only go to your lid. Now, if someone jumps you and goes over you, you know what they'll end up doing? They'll end up leaving the company, or they'll be dissatisfied and they'll turn into a problem, and then they end up leaving the company. Okay. Well, what happened was Ray Kroc came in and he was like a 9. So he was able to bring the company up to 7, 8, 9s. That is the law of the lid. Okay, so now all of us, every one of us, has a lid that we are. Okay, none of us are perfect. None of us are perfect leaders. None of us have reached that level where we are a perfect 10. So we continue to grow and to learn to expand ourselves to keep pushing our lid further and further and further so that when we're a 6, the 4 5s come underneath us. Then we move to a 7. Well, then these can move up to a 6. And so our business grows with it. This is the importance of leadership because leaders and managers are two different things. Okay. And a lot of people think that if you can run something, you can manage something, that's the same as being a leader. No, a manager just follows the rules and does what he's told. A leader has vision, has the ability to grow, has the ability to build others up around him, and they are the ones that are going to be able to achieve more and grow the business more and more and more. Okay, there's a big difference between managers and leaders. So the important thing is that we need to understand what our lid is. Okay, and once we understand what our lid is, then we need to start growing. Now, here's a simple principle, and I want you to see this thing, this success without leadership. Now, you have a chart there in front of you on the screen, and you see at the bottom it says success dedication. Okay, 1 through 10. So if you dedicate yourself to your business and you are a manager or you are a worker and you work so hard and you are an 8 dedication, but you only have a 2 leadership, you're only going to go so far. You'll see that your effectiveness in your business only goes so far. So, what you have to do is you actually have to raise your leadership ability to raise your effectiveness. here's the beautiful thing about this whole thing, this chart and everything that you see in front of you. As you see, as the leadership ability and the effectiveness goes up, the dedication doesn't have to go up more. So you're seeing like, okay, I'm a 7 dedication, but I'm only a 2 leadership. So I'm only going up a little bit. But if I increase myself from a 7 to a 5, you see how the effectiveness goes up, okay? Because of my leadership ability, okay? I'm going to read this to you. If you raise your ability, you will receive greater level of effectiveness, even with the same amount of dedication. You see that? You see that in that chart right there? So even with the same amount of dedication, it's not about working harder. It is about working smarter, understanding the skills in leadership to where you are working more, you're working smarter, not harder. Okay? Have you been in a situation where a leader's worked really hard but got nothing accomplished? I worked for years in a fast food environment, in a quick service environment, and we had some managers that would come in and they would work, I mean, sweat off their face. I mean, they were just working so hard, and you would look at their numbers and their numbers weren't that good. Well, why weren't their numbers that good? Well, they were dedicated, they were working hard, but they weren't very strong in their leadership ability. And a lot of times I would go into the kitchen or I'd go into the restaurant and they would be working hard and everyone else would be standing around watching them work because they were dedicated, they were working hard, but they weren't leading the rest of the team that was there to do the job to be effective. You understand? Okay, so that's the important thing with leadership because leadership is not, I'm a leader, so I do everything. No, I'm a leader, so I lead you. Okay, so I need to build up my ability to lead you, my ability to grow you so that you can be more effective, which makes me more effective. All right, you with me? Now, John talks about this thing in the book. He talks about how um, he spoke with a gentleman from an advisement company that you would go in and buy new companies. And he said the first thing that they would do is they would train all the people in customer service. That no matter what job they did, that customer service was one of the most important things that they would focus on. Because if you were already focusing on customer service, other things would come into alignment. And he said the second most important thing that he would do is he would fire the CEO or fire the president or fire all of the managers. And John heard this advice and he was like, whoa, wait a second. This is kind of crazy. And the guy said, the reason why we do this is because it's better to remove them because if they were good leaders, this company wouldn't be in the situation it is right now. They wouldn't be in this problem if they had good leaders. So his idea, and many of companies and many of the ideas, is that you fire the leader to fix the company. So here's the thing is that we've got time. A lot of companies don't have time, so they want to get to the bottom line quickly. Well, you know what? If you're an entrepreneur, if you are growing, if you are moving forward, guess what? You need to grow your leadership abilities. Here's the thing. Everyone can become a leader. Okay? How can I grow as a leader? Yes, it is true that there are people who have natural abilities. Okay? There are some people who are naturally gifted in, certain athletics, or people who are naturally gifted in speaking, or naturally gifted in writing and stuff. But all of those things you can learn and improve to raise your ability in those things. Okay, like I said here in this on this slide, although it's true that some people are born with a greater natural gifts than others, The ability to lead is really a collection of skills. And that's the thing I want you to think in your brain is that to be a leader, it is a collection of skills. Now, listen, I know you go, well, when I was in high school or when I was in this, there was that, one kid who he would stand up there and he would just start barking out everything. Well, was he a good leader or was he someone who just had natural ability to get attention? There is the difference. There is a difference between people who can get attention and can rally people around him and be a cheerleader, and a person who's an actual leader to lead people in growth, to lead people to do things they don't want to do. Because usually cheerleaders just get you to do stuff you want to do. Okay. But real leaders can push past that and actually grow you to the point where it's more than just what you want to do, but you start learning to do the things you don't want to do. Okay. So remember, this is a collection of skills, nearly all which can be learned and improved on. And that's why you're here tonight. That's why you're taking this class, is because you're learning the skills to be a leader. And you're also knowing that you need to improve because you want to raise your lid. Okay. I got two questions here I want you to write down. I want you to think about. Okay. What would you say are two areas you excel in leadership already? What are two areas that you already excel in leadership? Okay? That's question number 1. And question number 2, I want you to think about, what skill, if developed, would improve your leadership effectiveness? Okay, and I want you to take the time when we're done to answer those questions. What are the two things you already excel at? And what is the skill that you would develop that can improve your leadership? Okay. So we've started it and we've already talked about, listen, there's a necessity for leaders. Leaders, we have a lid, but you know what? We can grow beyond that lid. And also, we can continue to grow. So here's some things I want you to see. These are the 4 phases of leadership growth. And this is important because whenever you're doing something, whenever you're learning something new, whenever you're going through a new process and you don't understand it, there are always phases of growth. Okay. So here are the 4 phases of leadership growth. And we're going to start up in the upper left here. Ineffective, you're going to see it. It says ineffective, effective, unaware, and aware. You see that in the box. So the upper left, where we begin, it says, I don't know what I don't know. Okay. This is where most people fail. This is the point where they don't go any farther because they don't believe they can be leaders. Because they go, you know what? I'm not a natural leader. If it doesn't just come to me, I don't think that I can do it. And I'm just going to give up. And a lot of people fail as leaders at this point because they don't realize that they got to go through that. Because you know what? You don't know what you don't know. And that is so true. That's in everything. With business, with management, with leaders, with all, if you don't know it, you don't know it. So you got to continue to go, okay, what is the next step? What is the next thing that I need to do? Oh, I know what I don't know. Okay. Now, here is when we realize that we need to learn something because we are in a leadership role. Now, here's a situation is that sometimes you're just a frontline worker, and then someone goes, you know what? You need to be stepping forward into leadership. Well, I don't know what to do in leadership. I have no idea. I don't know what I don't know. And then you get put in this leadership role, and then you start seeing things and you start understanding things and you go, okay, I know that I don't know this. Okay. So you see how there's a progression here where it's like, it's no longer, I just don't know. Now it's like, oh, I see that there's things that I don't know. So in your leadership growth plan, the second step is kind of this understanding of going, okay, I need to grow here. Many of you might not have thought before tonight that there was a lid that you could overcome and that you could push forward. Well, now, okay, I know that I don't know that, and I don't know how to get past that. I don't know what to do. Okay, so that's the second step in this leadership growth. The third step is I grow and know, and it starts to show. All right. This is when you recognize your lack of a skill and begin a daily process of personal growth. All right. This is where you start putting things in place to help grow you, to help move you forward, so that you start to understand, okay, here's where I am now. Here's where I want to be in a week. Here's where I want to be in a month. Okay. So let's use this as a simple example. You realize that you struggle in communication, that you have a hard time of taking your thoughts and explaining it in a way that other people hear, right? And understand. So what do? Well, maybe it's time to take a class, or maybe it's time to take something like a disc assessment so that you learn your personality type or your communication style so that you can then adapt what you're saying to someone else's communication style. Okay. And that's one of the things that we do here with our leadership school and our leadership teaching and coaching that we do here at Trim the Wick is that we do a DISC behavior evaluation. And what it does is it helps you learn what your communication level is and your communication style is so that then you can adapt to other styles to help better connect with a person you're trying to explain to. All right. So, those different things, this is when you start growing to know and it starts to show. Okay. So you start putting things in place. You start putting things of discipline in place to help move you forward. You start writing notes. You start taking notes. You start expanding your vision of, okay, how can we do it this way? Maybe we can do it a little different, and maybe we move the table this way. Maybe we do, there's many different things that when you start growing and knowing, it starts to come out in your leadership ability. Okay. And that gives you more confidence and it helps you start to move forward. Okay. So, part three of your leadership growth journey is that I grow and know and it starts to show. Part four is where you really are effective. Okay, and you really are aware. You really just become unaware. Here's what I want to say is I simply go because what I know. This is where things just start flowing naturally. This is where you can look at a situation and go, here, here, here. We need to move you over here. We need to do this. We need to come up with a different process here. Okay. When I was working at a quick service restaurant, we had to redesign the kitchen because we redesigned the menu. And we would look and find out that, okay, well, this process here was great for the old way of doing things. It wasn't a problem. But now, because of the volume and because of the speed that we're doing this, and because of the different menu items, we can't do it this way anymore. So now we got to switch up. We got to move a table here. We got to actually, what we do, we turn the table sideways so that we had more length on one side of the table than the other. And then we go, okay, you're an individual that you used to be able to work at this station, but you can't work at this station anymore because now you're left-handed and it really needs a right-handed person. So now with this station, we're gonna have to we switched it around so a right-handed person get, and you see how just you start to just kind of flow and seeing things, and it just helps you start to lead, helps you start to change things up, helps you start to move forward in the running and the management of what you're doing, but it also helps you when you start seeing people and you start reaching out to people and their strengths and their weaknesses. I've had individuals who I've worked with who were shy, quiet people who didn't speak very much, but they had huge knowledge. So what did we do? is I put them in a situation that they were comfortable to start sharing their knowledge of what they were doing. So I didn't go, hey, Jimmy, it's your turn to shine. We're having a meeting right now, and guess what? Go for it. You start talking. You know, Jimmy would just he would just shut up. He would just be quiet. He wouldn't want to talk at all because that was an environment that wasn't conducive to him. So what I did is I worked with Jimmy and I said, "Hey, let's talk about what you're going to talk about next week. Let's set up the stage. How would it be more comfortable for you? Okay, let's put your plan together so that you understand what you're talking about, so that you have good knowledge of it. It doesn't come at you quickly, but you can think it through ahead of time." And guess what? Jimmy, you do great. And so those are those things as a leader, I see that in you, I see that in other people, and I go, "Okay, now what am I going to do to help bring that out of you so that you can grow?" Okay? This is the four phases of leadership growth, okay? You're going to start with the fact that you don't know what you don't know. Then you realize you know that you don't know something. Then you start to grow and know what you're doing. And then you just simply go because of what you know. All right. Here's a big thing. A lot of people think that you can just grow as a leader overnight, that you're going to go to a conference, that you're going to go to a class like this, you're going to do something and like overnight, you are going to become a leader. Well, here's the thing. If you're going to lead tomorrow, you need to learn today. Leadership develops daily, not in a day. Okay? This thing of leadership is a process. You are going to have to take time to grow, to learn, to build. Okay? You can't go to one class. You're going to learn a lot of information. The next 4 weeks, we're going to learn a lot of information. We're going to have a lot of discussion. We're going to have a lot of communication between each other to get things out of each other. But it's not going to happen in a session. Okay. You need to grow. You need to continue to do it daily. Okay. Here are some questions. Here are some questions that I want you to take down. Number one, are there areas where you are seeing your leadership ability is holding your business or your career back? Okay. And I want you to be honest with yourself. I want you to really take a hard look at this and go, are there areas in my leadership ability that I see that is holding my business that I own, my business that I work with, or even my personal career back? Number two, what do you believe is your lid number? It could be three, four, five, eight. I have a feeling for most people, myself included, it's more like a five, six. Okay. What do you believe your lid number is? Number three, what areas do you believe that you excel in leadership? It's not all bad. Okay. What are some areas that you already see that you are naturally talented in your leadership? Write those down. And number four, what are the changes you need to make to begin your leadership journey? Because, see, you are going to have to make some changes. You're going to have to push yourself. You're going to have to grow. You're going to have to put yourself in some situations for growth. So, what are those changes that you need to make? Now, next week, we are going to dive into this even more. We're going to talk about personal discipline that helps you achieve your leadership goals. Okay. So, you're going to want to be a part of that. You're going to want to be here for that because it is just going to be a lot of fun as we talk a little bit more about personal discipline, personal goals, and leadership goals. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here this week. Had a great time. I hope you are getting a lot out of this so far. Remember, if you want to pick up the book, you can get them on Amazon. It's John Maxwell's Leadership 101. And a lot of the information that we're talking about here in the class comes directly from this book to help you become a better leader. All right. Well, that's it. That's all we have for you this week. We'll be back at the same time next week as we talk about part two and personal development and personal growth. Okay. Thank you so much. God bless you. Bye bye.